the rise, the fall.
Oh, over the top.
Over the top. And he's hurt.
Gonna mess around. He may hit this. Oh, no.
The return.
Dustin's in trouble.
Dustin's in real
Dustin's
trouble.
in real trouble.
It's under the neck. It's under the neck. It's under the neck. He's going to tap. Whoa!
Oh! Knocked out for Oliveira now. Now Chandler is down.
He's out.
Charles Oliveira is the undisputed UFC lightweight champion.
Charles Oliveira is the embodiment of fall down 7 times, stand up 8. From the streets of Sao Paulo to the pinnacle of the fight game and everything in between, this is the story of one of the most electrifying fighters in MMA history. Born and raised in a favela in Brazil's bustling Sao Paulo, Charles Oliveira embraced the hardships of life at a young age, when he was diagnosed with heart murmur and rheumatic fever at only 7 years old. Oliveira's dream of making it big in life was temporarily put to a halt there and then, and to make matters worse, he couldn't afford treatment due to his family's modest financial situation. Despite grappling with a severe illness that prevented him from participating in sports, young Oliveira played soccer with his friends in the neighborhood, paying no heed to what his doctor ordered. Then, a miracle happened. As Oliveira started to exercise and be active, his health improved to the extent that he could lead a normal life. 5 years after his diagnosis, Oliveira was invited by his friends to train at Roger Coelho's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu facility. Since Do Bronx's parents couldn't afford the fee, his uncle, who knew the instructor, got the young boy a scholarship. Oliveira made the most of his once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, winning multiple championships in a few years. His first big win was as a white belt in 2003, when he conquered his first Sao Paulo State Championship in the junior division. As years passed, Oliveira bagged more medals until he was tired of rolling on the mats with sweaty opponents. The young grappling ace wanted to do something a little more exciting, so he said goodbye to the gentle world of grappling and entered the rowdy and violent world of mixed martial arts. In his first dozen fights, Oliveira piled up one victory after another and entered the UFC with an impressive record of 12 wins, 0 losses. The boy among men made a sparkling start to his career in the promotion, putting himself on the map in only 41 seconds. Oliveira fought Darren Elkins, who seemed like a tough fight on paper, but once they got into the cage, it was a whole different story. Elkins picked up Oliveira and threw him to the ground within seconds, but as soon as they hit the mat, the Brazilian flipped the table on the damage and locked him in an armbar that got the job done. After dispatching Elkins with ease, Oliveira returned to the octagon just a month after his debut, facing veteran Efrain Escudero. In the first 2 rounds, Oliveira couldn't get Escudero to the ground, but he made good use of his striking skills to strategically pick his opponent apart. In the 3rd round, the fight finally hit the mat, and Oliveira wasted no time in taking his opponent's back, getting those hooks in, and finishing the job by cutting off the blood supply. Unfortunately, the young Brazilian couldn't build on his success for the next few years and went through ups and downs that made people believe he was nothing more than a journeyman in the sport. In his 3rd fight, Oliveira showed signs of inexperience, losing to Jim Miller by a submission. His next fight was ruled as a no contest, whereas his 5th professional UFC fight also ended in a defeat at the hands of the ferocious Donald Cerrone. Over the next 4 years, Oliveira dominated mid- and bottom-tier featherweights and lightweights, but failed to deliver against better opponents, giving up when the going got tougher. He even tapped to elbow strikes.
Oliveira.
Oh, big elbow by Felder.
Oh!
By 2018, Oliveira was just another fighter competing in the UFC. He had dozens of submission finishes, but he lacked a decorated resume, which was a prerequisite for title contention. In 2018, Oliveira decided to change up a few things, both mentally and physically. For instance, he permanently moved up to lightweight and changed gyms to shoot boxing in Brazil. Moving out of his comfort zone paid off for Oliveira. From 2018 onwards, the BJJ wizard started to fully express himself, fighting with rejuvenated confidence and a fireball attitude, leaving a trail of broken bones and bodies in his way. Oliveira kickstarted his glorious run against Clay Guida at UFC 225, where he won by submission in under 2 minutes. 3 months later, Oliveira was back in the cage against Christos Giagos at a UFC fight night in his backyard in Sao Paulo. The first round of the fight between Oliveira and Giagos was slow and steady, but the Brazilian still managed to win control with a takedown. In the 2nd round, the takedown came early. Once Oliveira sunk in a body triangle, he wrapped his arms around his opponent's neck and squeezed the life out of him to earn a 2nd straight win. The Paulistanos were on their feet for their hero. Following another impressive win, Oliveira exorcised an old demon. Having tasted defeat for the first time in his career at the hands of Jim Miller, Oliveira was itching to even things out, and he made the most of the opportunity when it presented itself. Oliveira wasted no time in securing the first and final takedown of the fight. He sliced through Miller's defense like a hot knife through butter, and within 80 seconds, he settled his score. Next on his hit list was David Tamer, a rising star on a hot 8-fight win streak. The first round was violent and nasty, with Oliveira getting his eye poked a couple of times before getting dropped, which was obviously not good news for Tamer because if you drop Oliveira, you know you're dead meat. Figuratively, of course. Halfway through round 1, Oliveira mounted a comeback and pummeled his foe. In the second round, Oliveira continued to fight at a vicious pace. He cut off the cage and landed a nasty upward elbow, putting Tamer on rubber legs. Tamer tried to clinch to survive, but Oliveira locked in an anaconda choke and suffocated his prey. Oliveira continued to add more people to his highlight reel. After Tamer, it was Nick Lentz, who was rattled with a straight right and then battered on the ground. A few months later, Jared Gordon was knocked out cold with an uppercut from the deepest pits of hell. With 6 wins outside of the lightweight's top 10, Oliveira proved that he was one of the bigger fishes and was deserving of a place in the 155-pound Shark Tank. His first battle against a higher-ranked contender came against the outspoken and uber-talented Kevin Lee at UFC Brasilia in 2020. The first round was close, as Oliveira fired off bombs and Lee responded with missiles. In the second round, Oliveira was more aggressive and he outpaced Lee with his Muay Thai. Struggling to go toe-to-toe with Do Bronx, Lee panic wrestled. The third round was very much the same, with Oliveira outstriking Lee. To neutralize Oliveira's threat on the feet, Lee went for a takedown again but left his neck exposed. Oliveira latched onto it and finished the job with a guillotine. Next up, Oliveira faced the devil of the lightweight division, Tony Ferguson at UFC 256. For the umpteenth time, Oliveira was the underdog, and Ferguson was expected to run through him on paper. However, the reality was different. Oliveira mixed up his wrestling and BJJ to dominate Ferguson on the mat, nearly breaking his arm in the first round with an armbar. El Cucuy refused to tap. The damage was done, however, and Oliveira secured takedowns in rounds 2 and 3 as well, completely overpowering the former interim champion to establish himself as a top contender in the division. For many, it was the changing of the guard, with Ferguson making way for Oliveira to establish his reign of terror in the division.
Keep your hands up. Lift you up.
Oliveira's next fight was for the vacant UFC lightweight title. The Brazilian was initially expected to fight Dustin Poirier, but after the Diamond went for another red panty night instead, the UFC gave Michael Chandler the opportunity of a lifetime to win the UFC belt in only his second promotional bout at UFC 262.
God bless! See you at the top! Ladies and gentlemen, how about it? Iron Michael Chandler!
Chandler almost reached the top when he exploded out of a terrible position on the mat, hurt Oliveira on the feet, and then proceeded to strategically batter him with ground and pound. Chandler ended round 1 on a high and entered round 2 oozing with confidence until a sweetly timed left hook from Oliveira sent him rolling backwards. Oliveira chased Chandler like a demon until he was out of there. The champion had a name, and it was on every contender's lips. In his first title defense, Oliveira faced Dustin Poirier at UFC 269. He was the underdog, and it showed in the first round when Poirier dropped him twice with his superior boxing. Oliveira survived because the Louisiana native wouldn't dare follow up on the ground. From the second round onwards, Oliveira fought smartly, taking Poirier down and neutralizing his heavy-handed and precise boxing. In the third, Oliveira jumped on Poirier's back and put him out of there with a rear-naked choke. In his second title defense, Oliveira lost his belt to the weight scales when he came in half a pound heavier during official weigh-ins for his fight against Justin Gaethje at UFC 274. The fight went per schedule, with only Gaethje being eligible to win it. Oliveira had a tough start to the fight as Gaethje landed thunderous punches on his chin, one of which put the Brazilian on his back. Gaethje didn't dare to follow the man with the most submissions in UFC history to the ground, and for obvious reasons. Once Oliveira recovered, he returned the favor by dropping Gaethje with a straight right before choking him out. Gaethje had never been hit so hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's a feeling. It was a feeling I've never felt. Usually you get hit, you call it a buzz, call it a flash. And this is more like my tongue just went on a super powerful battery. And it just, my entire body, it was crazy. So yeah, it was perfect shots, perfect time, one or the other. And yeah, it was the factors that I faced that night.
Since the lightweight title was vacant, Oliveira fought Islam Makhachev for it at UFC 280. The Dagestani was in control from start to finish. He had the better of both the striking and grappling exchanges, and he finished the fight in the second round, dropping Oliveira with a crushing right and then following up with an arm triangle choke. The defeat was only a minor roadblock.
A wounded lion is still a lion. I feel that I was reborn from the ashes. I'm a champion. I'll show you that.
The Lion came out to hunt 9 months later at UFC 289, facing the tricky Beneil Dariush. Dariush had a strong start. He managed to take Oliveira down and maintain control over him for a few minutes. However, Oliveira would make his way back up quickly, push Dariush against the cage, and then rattle him with a head kick. Sensing Dariush's discomfort, Oliveira threw the kitchen sink at him, making him eat big punches until the referee jumped in and called the fight. The Brazilian has had a fair share of setbacks, but he always comes back stronger. He has never lost to one man twice, and he has made doing the unthinkable a habit. Do Bronx is the most dangerous when he has a chip on his shoulder. The next time he enters the octagon, Oliveira will be locking horns with the man they say is a nightmare for every lightweight on the planet. The reigning champion, Islam Makhachev, is on a glorious winning streak, with a win over Do Bronx being its highlight. For Oliveira, there are scores to settle. At UFC 294, an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. In a clash for the ages, who will come out on top under the bright lights of Abu Dhabi? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked the video, subscribe to our channel and smash that notification button. That's it for today. Until next time, take care and protect yourselves at all times.